Hey everyone, I'm Andy,
And I'm Sean.
and this is the Commander's Brew.
This week, Elsha of the Infinite Combo.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching us here on YouTube. We've got another big deck tech lined up for you, and if you want to help us out and support the show, easy way to do it is just hit subscribe here on YouTube. Really does a lot for us. It's really, really great. If you want to get like sort of more involved, you can check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/commandersbrew. You can get over there and donate directly and get involved in our Discord, which is where we're actually brewing these decks up and getting a lot of help from our patrons over in our Discord. So check us out, patreon.com/commandersbrew. There's other perks and all kinds of stuff over there too. It's a lot of fun. So check it out. But without further ado, we're going to talk about this week's deck. Sean, what are we working with this week?
Calling this Elsha of the Infinite Combos. And the inspiration for the deck was those Russian dolls. You know, those Russian dolls where like you open them up and there's another littler one inside, and then you open that one up and there's another one inside, and then you open that one up and there's another one inside. That's kind of the gist we're going for.
Right.
We're ending up in the Jeskai colors. Our commander is a little bit of a value commander. We're not building around our commander, but it just so happens Elsha works great in the deck. Let me tell you about Elsha of the Infinite. 2 blue, red, white, legendary Jin Monk, 3/3 with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Here's the fun part. You get to look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast the top card of your library if it's a non-creature, non-land card, and you may cast it as though it had flash. So for us, we're not building around it, but we end up with a hearty artifact component. So a lot of times we'll be able to cast the artifacts from the top of our deck. So let's set the scene, right? Some of the artifacts we're going to do that are good for value. Renegade Map. It's a single colorless artifact. Enters the battlefield tapped, but then you tap and sack it, search your library for a basic, put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. I really do love this card. It comes into play tapped, so you can't use it right away, but it does sack itself for free, which has lots of value. It does let you tutor a basic to your hand, so this just sits on the battlefield until the turn you don't have a land drop, and then boom, you get a land drop. It just keeps the lands coming. And with Elsha, there's that little extra combo where if the top card, if you like really hate it, you're like, oh, I wish it was anything I could cast. Crack that map, shuffle, maybe you'll hit it.
Nice.
This deck isn't designed to hit it a lot, but maybe that's a bonus. This next one was reprinted in Jumpstart, so it's really cheap. It's Chromatic Sphere. It's another single mana artifact. The other key I want to remind you is it can sack itself. For 1 and tap, sack Chromatic Sphere, add 1 mana of any color, and draw a card. So after you've cast it, the 1 mana you pay to tap and sack it, you get back in any color. You have to spend it that turn, but it's a net gain of 0 mana, a net loss of 0, and you've drawn a card and you've put another artifact into the graveyard. And then that's just sort of some of the functional cards. There's some card draw that way, cards like it. Mana fixing, mana ramp, that kind of way. And then our removal suite is cards like Oblivion Ring. 2 and a white for an enchantment. When Oblivion Ring enters the battlefield, exile another non-land permanent. And when Oblivion Ring leaves the battlefield, you return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control. This is important because we're looking at the old templating. They recently, I mean, I guess it's not that recently, they changed how this works because you could sort of take advantage of the triggers and do some dirty stuff with the old ones. Well, that's what we want. We want to do that.
Do the dirty stuff.
Yeah. So, Andy, why don't you take us through an example of a new card and then how some of this new one works?
Right. Okay. So the new version of this card you've probably seen on some stuff is like Banisher Priest. Banisher Priest was like the first one, I think. It was like back in like M15 or something, was it?
I think it was.
Yeah, where they made this card where it's like, oh, this is the new version of it. So it's 1 white for a 2/2 human cleric creature. When Banisher Priest enters the battlefield, exile target creature and opponent controls until Banisher Priest leaves the battlefield. So this is all one thing. it's all like one rules bit, all contained within of itself. When this enters, you exile it until this leaves. So simple, right? The other way involves triggers, like different. They're separate triggers, which is where you're getting into the. That's the main difference, right? So you're able to do stuff while things are on the stack. Angel of Serenity is another neat version of this, where it's so 4 white, big one, 7 mana for the 5/6 angel flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile up to 3 other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature cards from graveyards. And when Angel of Serenity leaves the battlefield, return the exile cards to their owner's hands. So this is the same thing. This is an older version. This is the old version, right? This is the version where we have 2 separate triggers. We have an enters the battlefield trigger, and then we have a leaves the battlefield trigger. You can see again on Banisher Priest, it's all one thing. There's no different triggers when it leaves. It just works that way.
Yeah, so if we use cards like Momentary Blink, 1 and a white for an instant, exile target creature, then return it. It also has flashback for 3 and a blue. We can take advantage of that old templating, and it's a little counterintuitive. I think that's part of why they eventually changed it, because it didn't work how people expected. If you really knew the rules, you could take advantage of it, whereas kind of newer players like who can't like break it down that way yet don't see it. Here's how you do it. When Angel of Serenity comes down, the first trigger goes on the stack. Well, they both go onto the stack, right?
Well,
so
when it just enters, right?
So Angel of Serenity enters, and you put 2 triggers on the stack. When it enters, well, okay, no, you see, it's so confusing. I still get tripped up. Okay,
because you're talking about already doing the blinking, but really it's
Angel of Serenity enters, and I'm holding a Momentary Blink in my hand.
Yes.
So I put the trigger on the stack that says, when it enters, exile up to 3 other target creatures. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to choose your 3 biggest creatures. But I'm not going to let that trigger resolve. I'm going to blink the Angel of Serenity. This works to bounce it back to your hand. Whatever I'm going to do, before that first trigger resolves, I'm going to make the Angel of Serenity leave the battlefield. So then the next part of Angel of Serenity's triggers goes on the stack. It says, when this leaves, return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. Well, guess what? The first trigger isn't even done resolving, so there's nothing to return. Then the first one resolves, and it exiles the 3 creatures, and it will never see the second one, even if you destroy this new version of Angel of Serenity, because it'll have new triggers. Those 3 are exiled forever.
Yeah.
So that's why we're using the old template, so that we can take advantage of it.
You see this a lot in Cube. I know, like, that's where I first ran into it, was on Magic Online with like a cube, I think. And what's the old one? It's like the O-Ring, but it's the creature. It's not Banisher Priest.
Oh,
that's
Fiend Hunter.
Fiend Hunter, yeah. Where you'd play Fiend Hunter, you'd exile something, but in response to that trigger, you sacrifice it first or something, right? Same thing.
Sure.
Exact same thing Sean's talking about here. That sacrifice version is the popular one. And then whatever the thing is exiled permanently. And Angel Serenity is just the much bigger version of it.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. So the scene has been set. That's kind of like some of the background you need before we get to some of our neat moves.
Working on a
neat moves. That's right. Neat moves.
So what is this Russian doll effect that we are talking about? That's the core of the deck. That's what we're working towards. Andy, why don't you just lead us off with our main Russian dolls?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So main Russian doll wise, we're looking at Clone Shell. Clone Shell is a really cool creature. 5 mana, generic, because it's an artifact creature, shapeshifter. It's a 2/2. It has imprint. When Clone Shell enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. When Clone Shell dies, turn the exiled card face up. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield under your control. So it's just a cool little imprint thing where you're going to be able to get this. If you can kill your Clone Shell, you're going to be able to get this thing for free, basically.
And I just want to point out that there's a tiny upside with Elsha because we're able to look at the top card of our library, and if that's a sick creature that we want under Clone Shell, we can work hard to make that happen before we draw that card.
Right. We also have Summoner's Egg, which is 4 mana for the artifact. It's also a creature. It's a 0/4. It's funny that it's not an egg though. Oh, it is. It must be oracled to an egg because on the card it doesn't say egg.
But it doesn't have defender. It can attack as a 0/4.
As a 0/4. Well, cool. So Summoner's Egg has imprint as well. When it comes into play, you can remove a card in your hand from the game face down. And when it's put into the graveyard, so when it dies, sorry, I'll just read the Oracle text. When Summoner's Egg dies, turn the exiled card face up if it's a creature card put in battlefield under your control. So same thing, except that this one imprints from your hand, not from the top of your library, or the top 4 cards.
Yeah, and so this is kind of these are the main Russian doll effects. So your opponents don't know what's under them, but we do. One from the library, one from the hand. So what if it dies in combat, or we sack it, or we let something happen to it? It would be great if we can get something under it like a Trusty Pack Beast. 2 and a white, 2/3. When Trusty Pack Beast enters the battlefield, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Well, can you think of an artifact that just went to the graveyard? I can. The Clone Shell or the Summoner's Egg, right? So I can start looping this thing. This also has extra functionality. Earlier I mentioned a lot of we've got a lot of artifacts for our support. So if we just get a Trusty Pack Beast the regular way, and we don't have those Russian dolls yet, the eggs or the shells, we can just get back maybe our Renegade map and just cast it again, get more lands from our deck that way, that sort of thing. Or maybe we didn't hit a Trusty Pack Beast. Maybe we hit a Salvager of Ruin. That's a 3-mana artifact creature construct. It's a 2/1, and you can sack it to choose target permanent that was put in your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, and you return it to your hand. We can return Clone Shell. Summoners Egg. We can keep that engine going as much as we want. Right.
One thing I think is notable is that Clone Shell and Summoner's Egg, the imprint ability is it enters the battlefield trigger. It's not a cast.
Right.
So if you're able to just pop it back in, you could make that work too.
Oh yeah, the ultimate is if you can get one under the other.
Yeah.
Like that's the ultimate Russian doll, to get a Clone Shell and have a Summoner's Egg under it, and then the Summoner's Egg has something from your hand when it pops out.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So now, Andy, take this next card. Just imagine what I just explained to you in the context of this next card.
Scrap Trawler. 3 mana for the 3/2 artifact creature construct. Whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. So whenever this one or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard, you get to return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser CMC. So
Clone Shell was 5. Summoner's Egg was 4.
Summoner's Egg is 4. So if you pop the Clone Shell into the graveyard, you can get the egg back. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, you can get the egg back, or one of your just mana ramp
things.
kind of cards. That's fine too. Lots of stuff like that.
Oh man,
Scrap Trawler is huge for the engine in this deck, where things are going to the graveyard and come back up.
And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm in.
So now, but like, what if we get some other? I'm calling them Banisher effects. We hinted at them earlier. This is Fiend Hunter with the old templating: 1 white, human cleric, 1/3. When he enters the battlefield, exile another target creature. And when Fiend Hunter leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Similarly, we have Wormfang Drake. Same thing, but it's 2 and a blue. It's a 3/4 flyer. The difference here is it has to be one of your own creatures.
Right.
So that's why you get a little bit of a boost on the power and toughness. But like, Andy, maybe you can cover some of the things we are happily put under our own Fiend Hunter or Wormfang Drake.
Definitely. Daring Archaeologist, 3 and a white for the 3/3 rare from Dominaria. Creature, human, artificer. When Daring Archaeologist enters the battlefield, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, and whenever you cast a historic spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Daring Archaeologist. And if you've forgotten what historic spells are, they're artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. So tons of artifacts here, obviously. So this guy's going to get big and return an artifact to your hand. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so we're going to cast the Daring Archaeologist once. Then if Fiend Hunter shows up, we're probably going to put Daring Archaeologist under Fiend Hunter or Wormfang Drake. So if anything ever happens to them, well, guess who's coming back to get more artifacts back in our hand? Shells, eggs, various things like that.
Sanctum
Gargoyle,
ahead. Right? Same thing, right? 3 and a white for the 2/3 flying gargoyle. It's an artifact creature, even though it's white. When Sanctum Gargoyle enters battlefield, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Another version of this.
So many of that. So another reason we are looking for that old templating is because the new templating of those banish type effects, they also made a design shift where it usually says your opponent's control. They don't often let you put your own things under those effects in modern design. That's another reason we went back in time, because we mostly want our own things under there, because that's what Russian dolls do, right? You have your own stuff in there.
Sure.
So of course we're going to put Strionic Resonator in the deck. 2 mana for an artifact. 2 tap, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets. So when Clone Shell enters the battlefield, I'm going to look at the top 4 cards of my library twice, put 2 creatures under it, and when Clone Shell dies, I get 2 of those creatures out, or Summoner's Egg, or Fiend Hunter, or Wormfang. It puts double dolls in the eggs.
Wow, yeah, double up your dolls.
Double up your dolls. Yeah. So all of this has been so fun. This is so fun. We're doing tons of recursion, but it has been building up to our ultimate goal. So earlier in the game, and I want you to go through this. See if this makes sense.
Okay. Wait, go through this next creature?
Yeah. Go through the next segment of notes and just kind of get this going.
Okay, am I skipping Junk
No,
Diver?
no skips. No skips. Yeah, go ahead.
So Junk Diver, 3 mana for an artifact. It's a bird. It's a 1/1 flying. When Junk Diver dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Okay.
Yeah, this just represents miscellaneous anything.
Okay.
We don't really care what it is, but we're going to put that under an Oblivion Ring.
Okay, we're putting this under an O-ring. Okay.
Sure.
Next we have Leonin Relic Warder. White for the 2/2 cat cleric that says when it enters the battlefield, you can exile target artifact or enchantment. And old school templating here, when it leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
So so when Leonin Relic Warder shows up, we target our own O-ring under the Relic Warder, and what happens then? We get our Junk Diver back, or whatever it is.
Right. So then Junk Diver comes back in.
Yeah, great. And now we have an O-ring under Leonin Relic Warder. Right. Now, Wormfang Drake shows up. What happens when we put Leonin Relic Warder under the Wormfang Drake?
So we have the Relic Hoarder under the Drake, which means the O-ring comes back in.
Yeah. So and with the O-ring, you see where this is going?
Wormfang Drake.
Yes.
And then Wormfang Drake leaves, so then the Hoarder comes in, and then the Hoarder comes in and gets the O-ring, and then the O-ring. So this is one of those combos that you can't stop, though, right?
Well, no, there's a May. Like Leonin is May. Relic Warder is not a May, but I believe O-ring is O-ring a May.
I think O-ring is not, because I think O-ring is
it's not.
responsible
That's the famous,
for that happening.
Leonin Relic Warder is a May, so we have an infinite loop.
As long as you have a May there, that's what you need, right?
Yes, we have an infinite loop of these 3 things entering and exiling each other.
Because otherwise, if you do that, you do lose the game, right? Because if you create an infinite loop that you can't stop, you lose.
That's true. That's true.
That's funny. Okay.
So then here are some other cards. So we use Junk Diver as a placeholder to begin with of like what's under the first thing. This happens in any order. It kind of doesn't matter what order these happen in. And there are several substitutes of redundancy that work in the place of a few of these. Not all of them, but like, because some of them have to hit enchantments, some of them are creatures, etc., etc. But there's lots of ways to get this cycle going. But imagine, instead of releasing a Junk Diver as all this began, imagine if that first thing we put under there was Impact Tremors. 1 and a red, enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. Infinite creatures come in, infinite damage to each opponent's. Maybe it's Blessed Sanctuary. 3 white for an enchantment. This is new from Jumpstart. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white unicorn creature token. Infinite tokens this way. Or Altar of the Brood. 1 mana for an artifact. I especially love this one because artifacts come back from our graveyard very easily in this deck. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard.
Mill them to death.
If your opponent has one of those, those old Eldrazi Titans that keep shuffling your graveyard, that won't work to kill them, but you just decide to stop whenever you want.
Yeah, kill everyone else except for that person, and then look for some other part of your combo, I guess, for that.
Yeah, those are some of the ways, but there's so many moving pieces to the deck. There's so much cool stuff going on. This has been fun to like engineer it all, but we're not done. There's there's another neat move I wanna go through. Andy, why don't you take this one? This one was especially fun that I discovered in testing.
Okay, so I have Yorion here, Sky Nomad, 3 and 2 Azorius hybrid. So 5 mana total for a 4/5 legendary bird serpent with companion. Of course, we can't run it as companion in Commander, so don't worry about that.
Wait, I did miss one detail. So sorry.
Okay.
No, this works. So skip. I'll just erase this. So eventually, we've gotten a lot of ramp because we're drawing extra lands. We're playing lands. A lot of our artifacts ramp. So once we have plenty of mana, here it is. So let's go. So Yorion. You start with Yorion.
Yeah, Yorion. So when Yorion enters the battlefield, you exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control. That's funny. Return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step.
And so if we have any of our own stuff under O-rings and such, they will come back. If we have opponents' things under those things, we'll have to give them back to our opponents, but we don't have to return Yorion. But in this case, we probably will hit everything. We're going to return all of our things and have them blink during the next end step because we have enough mana left over. It's a lot of mana. I did it in testing. It's possible to cast...
Cataract Leviathan, 6 blue, so 8 mana for a 5/5 Leviathan. When Cataract Leviathan comes into play, return all other non-land permanents to their owner's hands. And Cataract
guess
Leviathan
where all my permanents are?
Yeah, all your permanents are up in the exile zone. This also has Unearth for 6 and a blue. But so Yorion can only hit non-land permanents.
Right.
So it's
can
all
hit
the
all
stuff
my
you
enchantments,
own.
all my artifacts.
And same thing with Leviathan. Leviathan only brings non-land permanents back. Yeah,
right.
So that's good to know. So yeah, you just bounce everything, and then you just get all your stuff back at the end step, and then they're just stuck. This is like the Commander version of Upheaval.
Yeah, this is
even better,
Cyclonic Rift the hard way.
Yeah, you get it's the very hard way. That's true. Yeah.
The most backwards. Now, I mean, that Unearth ability is pretty key because, like, that's 1 mana cheaper when you're dealing with that much stuff. Is like that's important. So that was how I was able to do this. There's enough stuff going to the graveyard anyway that like I don't mind doing it. It's also fun to think about Cataract Leviathan or Yorion under a clone shell, or if you get Yorion under a Fiend Hunter, then the Fiend Hunter can leave. Yorion can go and be like, "Hey, Fiend Hunter," or other things come back. If another thing can put Yorion underneath it, we can get loops going that way, like at end steps and just like long-term loops. This deck hurt my brain to test. Like, there's a lot of stuff where I'm just like, I don't know what to do here. This is very hard.
It's a lot of triggers to keep track of, but if you get the combo right, it's still, even though it's a lot of triggers and a lot of things to keep track of, like it is, once it's going, it's kind of simple. It's like, okay,
Yes.
this guy bounce and go, this guy bounce and go, this guy bounce and go. You know, you're just sort of looking at this cycle.
I mean, we test digitally, so it's really hard on a digital platform to like think of all this stuff. I had to like use fake, like I had to use magic cards myself and just pretend it's like, okay, this one's under this one. I got it. This one's under this. Okay, yeah, I got it. Okay, great. Like I had to like walk it through. I needed to do it visually.
This seems really fun. Did you get any surprises or discoveries?
I did. Another Jumpstart card, which is perfect for this deck. I would love to cheat this out with a Summoner's Egg, but I'll cast it if I have to. Scholar of the Lost Trove. 5 blue. That's 7 mana for a Sphinx. It's 5/5. It has flying. When Scholar of the Lost Trove enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant, sorcery, or artifact card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If an instant or sorcery spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. I would love to see this under a Summoner's Egg. Kill the Summoner's Egg. Then Scholar Lost Trove lets you put the Summoner's Egg back on the battlefield without paying its mana cost. Let's keep the party rolling.
So it's funny that you don't have to exile the artifact card.
Because
like
it stays on the battlefield,
it stays
right?
there. Yeah, just interesting.
It's probably too hard to keep track of. This one has been marked to the exile
that's
or
true.
something.
Yeah, you're right. They always do that kind of stuff. Very cool though. Yeah.
And with blinking, I can blink this thing and get artifacts back from the graveyard. Like there's lots of cool stuff going on in this deck. This deck is pretty fun. I want to thank the Discord helpers.
Yeah.
Mr. Big Benz, Joseph, Beppo, Lol What, Tornado Joe, 87, Clockwork 12, Pips Don't Lie, you know Pips never lie, Madisman, Bands with Nerds, Neomaxis, Spiff, Doomfrog, Mondo, Papadio, Seth, Magic Sphere, and I must point out, our Discord is great. The minds that come into these projects, these little assignments, are off the wall. I left for lunch. We were building the deck and I was like, I'm going to take a lunch break. Here's what I'm going to be thinking about when I get back. And when I came back, I want to bring up another card that I did not use, but the Discord started running ahead and was like, what if we do all of this built around Skybind? 3 white for an enchantment with Constellation. Whenever Skybind or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, keep in mind our infinite loop does involve an enchantment entering, so we can get infinite triggers of this. Exile target non-enchantment permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So the Discord was engineering a way to what if we bounce everyone's lands and permanents that aren't enchantments, and now we have an empty board on our turn to play in, and then they just come back at the end.
That's wild.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, this happens every time. The gang in Discord just always comes up with something different that is its own thing and still super fun, and I love it.
Well, the other thing that I want to point out again, thank you. I can't thank you enough in the Discord, right? If you want to jump in on that, feel free. You can go over to our Patreon and find out how to get involved that way. There was a lot of black cards suggested, and we were really debating which colors to use for a little while. I went with Jeskai. My rationale is up there in the Discord, but there's certainly a lot of cool black cards that go well in this type of strategy. So if you are in our Discord but you don't go to those channels, I'd recommend just give that a look and see some of these other ideas. We could have brewed this deck a few different ways.
Cool. I'd be interested to see what a black version looked like.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and you get way more sack outlets that way, manipulating the graveyard more.
Right on. Yeah.
Cool. So I think it's time for the budget report.
That's right. It's budget report time. So Sean, what are we looking at for this deck? It's a pretty interesting build.
It's cheap too. The market price $85, and you can get it TCG Player Low for $47.
Wow, that's great.
The most expensive card is a Jumpstart card. It is cheaper than it used to be, but it's still about $7. It's Scarecrow, 3 for generic for an artifact creature scarecrow, 1/2. You can pay 1 and sack a scarecrow. This is your only scarecrow. So basically 1, sack this, draw a card. Or 4, tap, return target artifact creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is key for getting back Clone Shell or Summoner's Egg. You can sack it to draw a card early in the game. If you're expecting to get artifacts back later, you can just be like, well, I'm just going to pop this in the graveyard, draw a card, because I know I'm going to get something back, and this will be my best thing. It's a lot of good functionality. I hope it comes down more than the $6 or $7 it is, but I think you could certainly cut it. This deck has a lot of ways to do this, so we're not hurting for them.
Paying 3 and then 4 and tapping to get something back is like, it's not the greatest deal. It's not terrible, but it's like, depending on what you're getting.
Yeah.
So I understand that. Next is Blessed Sanctuary. This is the again the jumpstart enchantment that gets y'all the 2/2 unicorn tokens whenever a non-token thing enters, and prevents non-combat damage, which is relevant. This one around $6. I mean, newly printed card. People are probably jamming this in some decks and seeing how it works. So makes sense. What do you think? Is this? It seems like you've got a couple different versions of like this thing where it's like, oh, if we get a loop, we can win this way. And Blessed Sanctuary feels like you also would need like a haste way, thing almost. So like this one's probably you can cut this.
Yeah, Blessed Sanctuary won't win us the game if we're in a loop, but I mean, it does have its
pretty
place,
close, right? Yeah, like you're
we
still
do
doing
a lot of bouncing.
Yeah, I was gonna say
before we get there. So like having a bunch of extra 2/2s is great to keep us alive, to keep it going, to chip in for some damage. But I think this is a fair cut. If this dropped to like $1 after Jumpstart's been out a while, put it in.
There's got to be something else that does a similar thing, right? Like where like when non-token creatures enter, you get to make some kind of token, probably, right?
I mean, sure. I mean, let's just do impact tremors and do damage.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah, third most expensive card, $5. It's an oldie. It's Parallax Wave. It's pretty cool though. It's 2 white for an enchantment. It's got fading 5. So when you cast it, you put 5 fade counters on it, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a fade counter. And if you can't remove a fade counter, aka because they're all gone, you sacrifice it. So you've got 5 fade counters, and you're allowed to remove a fade counter to exile target creature.
Right.
And when Parallax Wave leaves the battlefield, each player returns to the battlefield all the cards they owned exiled with Parallax Wave. So you can just cast this for 4 and pop out 5 of your own creatures and have them come right back. You could do like a big 5 times momentary blink. You can put some under it and then do like a Leon and Relic Warder thing and put Parallax Wave under, so 4 of those things come back. And if one of those things grabs Leon and Relic Warder, we can loop it that way, because now we can bring back Parallax Wave with 5 counters, bring back more counters, blah, 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 blah. It's just another way to get this going in much bigger fashion.
I know that this isn't how it works, but explain to me why it doesn't work this way. So you cast Parallax Wave.
Yes.
4 mana. Comes in, 5 counters on it.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately remove all counters from it.
Mm-hmm.
I remove 5, and I exile 5 things.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's all on the stack, it's like bam, 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 bam. And then now all of a sudden there's no counters on it. So shouldn't that mean that it immediately is getting sacrificed? No,
it only sacrifices on my upkeep.
Okay, that's why. Okay, but if you had a way to say sacrifice an enchantment, for example,
yeah,
it would work like the old things, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yes.
There you go. That's what I was asking about.
Yeah.
So it doesn't check for the fade counters until the upkeep. I see.
Yes, but so imagine the world where you have an O-ring under something, under a creature, Leon and Relic Warder.
Mm-hmm.
You can use one of the fade counters to remove Leon and Relic Warder, and then the O-ring appears, and the O-ring gets rid of Parallax Wave. So now you get all those things back, including the Leon and Relic Warder, who returns. Now can return. Yeah, I get confused, but that's kind of what's going on. Yeah.
That's cool. That's good.
Yeah.
$5.
Let's cover faves.
Let's talk about faves. Okay, I love a Cauldron of Souls. 5 mana for the artifact. This is I don't know if I call it a staple, but this is like a very popular commander card. We all know this one. And I just love the way it works here, right? You're choosing any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains persist until end of turn. So things are dying. They're popping back in right away. They're still getting all the death triggers. You're getting all the ETB triggers, whether it's clone shells and eggs and all of those great artifacts that are creatures that are bringing back the artifacts. Like, this is a great card, and I think we all know this. But I actually don't think I own one. I still don't think I have one. But I have a ton of decks that want this card.
You got 78 cents?
Yeah, exactly, right? Yes, I tell you what, I do have 78 cents.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
My fave, I hinted at it earlier. It's almost a fun sub game of the deck. I found myself using this so much. Grinning Totem, 4 generic for an artifact. 2 tap, sacrifice Grinning Totem. So what's happening is I'm putting a 4 mana artifact in the graveyard, and I have a million ways of getting it back into my hand or into the battlefield. So I'm going to pay 2. So here the play pattern is play it for 4. Then on my next turn, tap 2, sacrifice Grinning Totem. So I have lots of mana left over. Search target opponent's library for a card and remove it from the game. Exile it. Then that player shuffles their library, and until the beginning of my next upkeep, I may play that card. At the beginning of my next upkeep, if I haven't played it, it goes into its owner's graveyard. First time out, I'm probably grabbing your Sol Ring if it's not already in play. Or maybe I'll just grab, if you have your own kind of O-ring effect, I'm grabbing that to kind of help my thing along. Or whatever you've got, that's great. It doesn't fix your mana. Like, it doesn't let you cast it for any color, but you get to play the cards. So if you've got like a land that does all the colors, great, I might take that first because I'm planning on using this again and again. Now I'm able to use more colors, or, I'm also running a few lands that tap for a mana of any color or for colors your opponents control, which should open this up. So, and earlier I mentioned like Chromatic Sphere lets you filter colors through it. Golden Egg, these are similar artifacts that do that. So I can just look through your graveyard and be like, I've got 7 mana left over. What's the best 7 drop that you have? It's mine now.
To me, this is the surprise or discovery of the episode. This is a wild card. I don't think I've seen this before, because it's kind of just like, I don't know. I mean, it's like a lot of cards, I suppose, but we just get to take something from their best thing from their library, and as long as we can cast it, we have to do it that turn, right? And we're obviously, there's like a premium on it. There's the 2 mana and sacrificing this thing. So it's like a lot of mana going into this. But like you said, you're able to get this back easily with just the way this deck works. And sometimes probably even get this out for free. I don't know. Anyways, it's like, it's not that much in this deck. So that's great. Like, you could even take an instant. Am I right here? And like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know, for some reason, if you for some reason needed a counter spell or something, you could take that and just basically hold it up, until your next upkeep, in which case, obviously, if you haven't used it, then what were you getting that for in the first place? But interesting. That's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, just think of like the gameplay. Again, you pay 4 mana to cast it, and then you pass the turn. So you didn't do a lot that turn. But the next turn, 2 mana tutors are old. They're like power cards, right? Like, they don't make them anymore.
That's Demonic Tutor, yeah.
This is like Demonic Tutor. It has to be for someone else's deck, so you can't get your combo piece that you put in here. But like, that's a pretty good deal. Like, you just go shopping. Just pay 2 mana. Just tell yourself, like, I have 7 mana remaining. I'm gonna go on a shopping spree. Give me your deck.
With the additional thing, again, of getting it back and for free and whatever it is, however it is we're doing it, this makes this card really great. Like, just really, really good.
This is another kind of Russian doll, but in a weird way.
Yeah, you're right. This is a weird Russian doll that steals something from you.
Yeah. Oh, look what's inside. It's your thing.
Yeah. Hey, how did that get in there? It's like a magic trick. Give me that back.
Oh, man.
Really cool.
This is a fun one. This is a tricky one. This one's probably best saved for when we're back to playing Magic in person. I don't want to play this deck on spell table.
Yeah, especially if you get that grinning totem out. That's one thing that I saw a post about that, playing VDH, and it's like, if you're gonna play, like, try not to play a deck where you're stealing people's stuff, because it just gets very confusing. And yeah, it's true. But a very, very cool deck, I gotta say. I love what you guys came up with here. This is really, really good stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you like what you've heard or seen, however you are engaging with us, consider helping out with our sponsors here. So we've got, of course, if you want to buy this deck and you're outside of Canada, check out TCG Player. Click on that affiliate link. You can follow that and buy any of the cards in this deck or from any other place on the site, and we'll get a little slice of that. That'll help us out, helps them out. If you're within Canada, even better deal, of course. Check it out. Wizard Tower, wizardtower.com, and you can get a discount with our promo code and on singles inside of Canada. So check it out, wizardtower.com. Thanks for watching, listening, laughing, loving, lifing. Also known as living. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too. And for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.